Joe Marino now on the Western Hotline. We'll look back a little bit on Houston, some Brandon Cooks, some Steelers game. Joe from Locked On Bills, the Locked On Bills squad show as well, and a whole host of other things. Thanksgiving, Joe, what's your star side dish for tomorrow? What are you excited for?
Oh, I got to have – the stuffing is definitely, like the staple for me. But if I'm going to go with like a unique Joe Marino thing, give me some stuffed artichokes, man. I really like those.
Stuffed artichokes. Is that a you thing, or is that a North Carolina thing, or what? Because that's not something I've ever run into.
Well, my 100% Italian father, this was kind of his thing. He'd make these artichokes. I don't really even know how he made them. But, he would take like literally the regular looking artichoke and breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese, and you just kind of peel off the leaves and kind of slide them across your teeth, and they're really good, man. They're kind of different, but I figured I'd throw something unique out there. Everyone's going to say, mac and cheese or stuffing, but give me those stuffed artichokes, man.
Were you going sauce with those too, or are you just eating those without it? Or eating plain? Because it sounds like it'd be good no matter what.
Yeah, they're. I think he steams them or something. He passed a few years ago, so my sister knows how to make them. That's the good news.
Gotcha.
So I got to learn from her.
All right, well, Thanksgiving tomorrow, 3 good games. Let's look back a little bit, Joe, on the Houston game before we look ahead. And I think listening to you a little bit, and even the Texans head coach, DeMeco Ryans, when he did his podcast on Texans Voice this week, I feel like everywhere I'm listening, it's the Bills' game plan, especially protection-wise for Josh Allen, was questionable, if I'm being kind.
Well, yeah, I mean, the big talk coming out of that game is the Bills and their use of 5-man protections, which is just your offensive linemen. That means there's no help from running backs and tight ends. And look, that's what the Bills do. They've been doing it for a while. So it's not like they showed up in Houston and said 5-man protection. This is what they've done. They were number 1 by like 7% last year in 5-man protection usage, and I think they're right towards the top again this year. And the concern here is that it highlights some of the lack of evolvement, the lack of ability to adjust. And, anybody that was watching that game knew early on that, unfortunately, Dawkins and Brown weren't able to get it done at tackle, right? I think they went into this game and said, hey, we're good at tackle. You're good on the edge. Let's find out who can get it done, right? And I didn't think the Bills would shut down Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, right? But you'd expect it to be a little bit more of a back and forth thing as opposed to really one-sided with that Houston pass rush. And so, all right, you went in there, you thought you'd continue to use your 5-man protections, which, again, there's a good part of that. It allows you to maximize your eligible receivers. You only get 5 eligible receivers. Well, if you keep them in the block, well, then they're not on the menu for Josh Allen to throw the football to. So I'm sure they wanted to preserve that. But the fact that it was pretty obvious on both sides, not even just Spencer Brown and him kind of playing through a shoulder, and then for them to not help at all, right, not to give chippers or, even just enough help. In fact, on their non-play action passes, they were 7% higher than their season rate of 5-man protections. They'd been 83% 5-man going into the game. They were 90% in this game. And so it's a blatant failure to adjust, putting your quarterback in a really bad spot. And so it's a goofy game plan. And I think DeMeco Ryans had the right messaging where, he's surprised. He's very surprised that the Bills are willing to play more straight up, and certainly it paid a tough consequence. Josh Allen sacked 8 times and hit 12 more.
Do you feel like that's something they could adjust, not in the game, but maybe now rest of season? I mean, depending on the matchup, McDermott talking multiple times in his press conference about, like, we can't have Allen getting hit 12 times like that. They'll play Cleveland. They'll play Philly. We'll see if they play like Denver in the playoffs. Do you feel like that it's more matchup dependent, though, that they should be open to looking different on that front?
Well, I don't really excuse them not adjusting in the game. I don't. That's not something that you can't figure out in the game. That's very basic. Oh man, we're not winning with our pass rush. You do certain things. You throw screens. You run the ball. You run some draws. Right. You get some quick game going to mitigate the pass rush. But ultimately, you can adjust. You can keep a back in there to help. You can keep a tight end in there to help. Right. That's very much a possibility for an NFL football team. So it's not like, oh no, we went in for the game with 5-man protections and it's not going to work and we don't have another plan. That's very basic stuff that you just choose to do, and the Bills chose not to.
Do you have any issue with the late game sequence, whether it's the final play or I guess where the ball went on the final play? Did it seem like they were drawing that up for Dawson Knox, given who Davis was kind of trying to get in the way of?
Yeah, I take great exception with the end of game sequence, and I want to start with the play before. Let's not forget that the reason it was 4th and 6 is because Deion Dawkins false started to take it from 4th and 1 to a 4th and 6, and don't forget the 3rd and 1. Josh Allen wasn't able to get the ball over top of Will Anderson, who deflected the ball to a wide open Khalil Shakir in the flats. Joe, that'd probably been a touchdown, if not a first down. So, I think we're going to focus a lot on that very last play that we saw, and I'm going to give you some thoughts on it. But I think it goes back to, not being able to get that ball to Shakir, a Dawkins false start that made it 4th and 6 instead of 4th and 1, and then you get to this final play, which is an absolutely egregious play call for a number of reasons. But first of all, they ran mesh, right? And mesh has been a big talking point this week. And the reality is the Bills run mesh. They've been running mesh for years. They run it more than any team. And mesh is simply this. You have a shallow crosser from one side of the formation. You have a shallow crosser from the other side, and they mesh, right? They meet. And you hope that one of them can kind of come out clean. You kind of get some traffic, you get some rubs, and somebody can come out clean, and then you layer stuff with it. The Bills like to layer, a rail route out of the backfield for the running back. They like to put a sit route over top of the mesh to kind of give another option if, once that clears. But here's the challenge with mesh. You can't throw the ball until the mesh clears, right? So you have a shallow from one side that has to clear a shallow from the other side. And so what does that do? It takes the ability for your quarterback to make a quick decision. It takes it away, and it stresses your protection. And you're stressing your protection that's failed you all night long. Oh, by the way, you got a backup right tackle in there. It's an egregious play call under those circumstances. And I know that, everyone can rewind and push pause and see a wide open Dawson Knox. The problem is Josh's vision is blurred by all the things that are happening, all that pocket caving in. He can't see him. He can't see him there. And the only thing he can do is heave one up to Josh Palmer, and they weren't on the same page. And so it's a major failure in the highest of leverage moments where the Bills, once again, in that type of a situation, look completely unorganized and have the wrong idea.
Yeah. It almost sounds like, so basically the second to last play seems to be more on Allen than the last play would be.
I don't know. I mean, it's
close.
A great play by Will Anderson. I mean, as an offensive lineman there, and you see it's quick game, right? That ball, they're doing that orbit return motion. That ball has got to go there. You can't allow that space to get there between you and the defensive end. And if he jumps, you got to knock him down quick. And Van der Mark didn't do that, right? He's got to make sure there's no air between him and the defensive end, and he's got to make sure that if he jumps, he gets knocked down. And he didn't execute. And I mean, you'd love for Josh to get the ball a little higher, but it's never one thing in football, right? I hope everyone's learned that by now in their life. It's never one thing, but there's compounding layers there. But that's multiple things there on a high leverage moment, right?
Yep.
For as bad as that game went for the Bills, they had tons of great opportunities there at the end to win it, and they couldn't pull it off.
It is amazing they had. I mean, Davis a foot lands in bounds, and they have 1st and goal, and it's amazing that they would have even had that chance. How the game was going. Or how it felt that it was going at the very least. So the team now signs Brandon Cooks, Joe. We'll get to the Steeler game for a moment, but do you see anything in Cooks that makes you hopeful that he could give them, I don't know, something down the field, I think is really what you'd be thinking about? Because when he was at his best, he definitely was a speed threat down the field.
Boy, what an addition Brandon Cooks would be if this were 2020.
Yeah, right.
Let's be honest about it. He's 32. He's averaging 19 yards per game this year. He's had under 700 yards each of the last 4 seasons. I mean, this is late-stage Brandon Cooks, who's been bouncing around multiple years. Like, we got to get our expectations in the right place. I agree with you. You'd love for him to be able to stretch the field. That'd be awesome. That would be phenomenal, right? I don't think he's quite the 4.33 he ran back in 2014, but I'm sure he's got some juice to him. But ultimately, for as attractive as that is, like, just the fact that he's a professional receiver, I don't know, it can't hurt, right? I mean, what do the Bills have? Keon Coleman, who's benched for disciplinary reasons, hasn't performed well on the field. Elijah Moore can't become a meaningful part of this offense. Curtis Samuel, same thing. I like Josh Palmer, but he has been injured and not been able to really carve out a major role on this offense. Khalil Shakir is kind of a role-specific player in the slot. I mean, it can't hurt, but it's also, I think we got to get our expectations in the right place. This isn't the guy he was. That's, look, he's had a great career. He's closing in on 10,000 yards for his career. But, to think that this guy in week 13, that's never taken a rep in this offense, that's never caught a pass from Josh Allen, is going to come in here and suddenly make an inconsistent passing offense consistent. I think that's a big ask.
Yeah. The most interesting thing might honestly just end up being, well, how does the roster shake out, like the numbers at the position? Because if Davis is going to be on the active roster eventually, then we're talking about a lot of receivers on the active roster. So that might be where we're headed.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you have some pathways here. I mean, you look at Curtis Samuel, that's always an IR candidate.
Yep.
I think they like the all-around game of Shavers and what he brings, but, I think you could probably get him back in the practice squad if you're really nervous about it. Elijah Moore, can you just release him?
Right.
Is he now completely redundant as a non-special teams depth receiver that can't really get on the field? So I think they have some pathways here, and I do believe that they'll use their final elevation on Gabe Davis and then put him on the 53-man roster. I think it makes sense to not do it yet. You might as well maintain that flexibility while you have the elevation. There's no reason to clear a roster spot for Gabe Davis at this point. So I think that'll happen after this game, and he has his third elevation. But I think they have some options there.
Finally, Joe, Bills and Steelers on Sunday. What if it's 6-5 Pittsburgh? I mean, this is just kind of what they are, right? Like they might limp their way to 8-9 wins, see if Tomlin keeps that winning record. In terms of the matchup, Rodgers may be playing through an injury. The defense looks like a couple of nice pass rushers. Jalen Ramsey's now playing safety. What would be the biggest challenge you see on the whole Pittsburgh side of things?
Well, they've just been their defense has been really inconsistent, just like the Bills' offense, where you watch it and sometimes it looks like it's going to be shut down. Sometimes it looks like there's yards for anyone to get. So what Bills' offense shows up and what Steelers' defense shows up, I think, is going to be the ultimate question here. But can the Bills handle their dudes on the D-line? Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, Nick Herbig, Keanu Benton. We'll see if Alex Highsmith can go. But they got a lot of problems with their pass rush. I know that metrically it's not been very good, but they're very, very capable. And, the Bills and kind of their third down, the protection, blitz, it's not been very good. And the Steelers can kind of stress that. So I'm not expecting Spencer Brown to be able to go this week. So with a backup right tackle, and how do you get your protection right to give your passing game a chance to function? And then, I think they're pretty average at defending the run. The Bills are very good at running the football. I think this is a let James Cook game.
Joe Marino, Locked On Bills, thejoemarino.com. Check out all he's doing. Happy Thanksgiving, Joe. Thanks for coming on, and enjoy the stuffed artichokes.
Thanks, Joe. Happy Thanksgiving to you.